You know, there are only 15 teams in each conference, right?
Yeah. I thought that was rhetorical.
Check the standings. That's really for everybody. The Grizzlies are 14 in the Western Conference. That's not great. At 19-28, so they're getting a head start on the trade season. Reports confirmed today, in fact, that both Mike Conley and Marc Gasol are now available for trade. Here's their reaction this morning at shoot-around.
It's where we're at, I guess. You know, it's part of the business. You know, it's not like we've been traded yet or anything like that. It's part of it, and you know, we knew with the way things have been going the last few weeks that anything can happen.
That's not going to change, is it? That's not going to change to me. So, you know, my relationship with the Grizzlies might change, but my relationship with Memphis won't.
Now for more, let's bring in David Cobb, who covers the Grizzlies for the Memphis Commercial Appeal. And David, this story isn't the only thing heating up there. Apparently there was a fire in the team locker room this afternoon. What happened?
Yeah, you put Marc Gasol and Mike Conley on the trading block, and the locker room literally catches on fire today. A light dropped in the sauna and sent smoke throughout the building, and everybody had to evacuate just 3 hours before tip-off. So the Grizzlies tonight are operating out of the Memphis Tigers locker room here at the FedEx Forum.
Wow, rich people problems. The light falls into the sauna, right?
Exactly.
Well, for a lot of us, the writing has been on the wall in Memphis in terms of their future and perhaps unloading the Stars, seeing what they could get. What was the tipping point for Robert Pera and management now?
Well, it was the Monday loss to the Pelicans. They lost by 20 at home to a Pelicans team that was playing without Anthony Davis. And this loss came on the Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration game, which is a big, big day for the city every year, in front of a packed house. And it was, I think, the death knell, so to speak, in terms of, you know, any hope that this Conley-Gasol reiteration was going to take this team anywhere this year.
Well, both players carry huge price tags. Gasol has another year at $25 million plus. He could also opt out. Assuming he reaches a games played incentive, which seems likely, Mike Conley has 2 years and $67 million left after this season. How do those deals complicate the trades that could be out there for the Grizzlies?
Well, I think it minimizes what the Grizzlies can expect to get in return for either of them. If you flash back a decade ago, they traded Pau Gasol and they got 2 first-round picks and Marc Gasol back from the Lakers in the deal. Well, Pau Gasol was 27 in the prime of his career at the time. Both of these guys are past 30, they're past their primes, and they've got these huge contracts. And so I think that really kind of minimizes what the Grizzlies are going to be able to get for him. And they've got to be realistic as they listen to these offers, because if they've got, you know, these grand visions of getting back a star player or a bevy of first-round picks, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, those aren't the only 2 huge contracts on the roster either. Reportedly, the Grizzlies are also trying to find a new home for Chandler Parsons, who also makes a ton of money, hasn't played since October. Will a team looking to trade for either Conley or Gasol have to take on Parsons' contract as well?
How could they? I mean, what team has that amount of cap space? You know, unless they've just got a ton of dead money that they can send back that the Grizzlies are willing to take, then I don't see how that would work. But I guess it's not impossible, but it would take a real talented mathematician to figure that one out.
There are a few of those giant contracts in the summer of 2016 that teams are looking to move at this time here in 2019. We'll find out soon enough. Appreciate the time, David. Good to talk to you, and enjoy the game tonight. David Cobb from the Memphis Commercial Appeal. All right, guys, when you look ahead to these two, obviously both talented players. Gasol's a 3-time All-Star, former Defensive Player of the Year. Conley, much discussed, one of the best players, if not the best in the league, who has not made an All-Star team yet, but they've got these big numbers following them wherever they go. What kind of market do you think there is for either?
I think it's robust for both of them in theory.
In theory, yeah.
But it becomes a much more difficult prospect when you look at the numbers, specifically on Conley's deal. And then for Gasol, I know it makes sense that you'd want a big man with his resume, but does he fit in a lot of these places is the question. They've been married to a certain style, GA, that whole grit and grind ideal that they've played in basically, you know, certainly for Conley's entire career in Memphis. It's the only place he's ever played. I don't think he's known. Marc Gasol, likewise, has been ingrained in this thing. I mean, this is the way they've come up playing in this league. You're asking them both to step out of a comfort zone that's been really good to them and for years really good to Memphis. Now you're talking about, can you just take these guys as individual talents and plug them in anywhere? I'm not sure, Matt, it's as simple as that.
It's absolutely not simple. The one advantage you do have, both guys have the necessary skill set to play the game today. Both can shoot it, both can pass it, both can defend it. I would say both have high basketball IQs. So then it becomes a matter of, does the contract make sense? You know, when you look at Gasol's number, you say, well, it's a big number, but he doesn't have 4 more years on it.
Right.
And there's a scenario, I would think, where he might be willing to go somewhere and not opt in the last year and sign an extension.
Like his brother did in San Antonio.
Like his brother did.
Yeah.
And if he's got a chance to maybe go somewhere where he can be a significant difference maker. Because as good as both those guys are, the problem for Memphis is their 2 best players aren't good enough to be the best players on a really good team.
Right.
But if they're your 3rd best player or 4th best player, you're a really, really good basketball team. And so then you got to juxtapose that against the salary. And oftentimes with some of the younger teams that are making a push for the postseason, you can take that salary on because you haven't paid your young stars completely. So
Brooklyn, for instance.
Yeah, Brooklyn makes a lot of sense for me when you start looking at them. And also I would think Memphis, because Brooklyn is going to have first-round picks that could potentially be lottery picks, which is obviously something. That's not the ideal scenario if you're Memphis. But keep in mind, Memphis is not a team that's going to be able to participate in an A-list free agent market. You know, they can sign free agents, but they're not getting the superstars.
Right.
So for them, those draft picks become vitally important because you do want to be able to develop within, much like they did with Jaren Jackson Jr., who could potentially end up being one of those guys at the forefront, like the guys they have on their roster, in essence, who they were able to draft.
So quickly, we're up against time here. What's a realistic haul coming back to the Grizzlies? Or is it just a matter of do whatever you can to get out from under these deals and reset?
No, I think they want young talent.
I mean, I know they want
first-round picks. I think and I do think there's enough value because of the talent of those 2 players that they could get what they want back. It's just a matter if it pans out long-term, if they're able to rebuild. Do they trust that front office? Because they probably should have done this about a year and a half.
Much sooner than this. And do you get one of them moved and not the other? That's that's going to be the difficult part.
Right.
When's the last time a team was able to move 2 veteran contracts like this at the same deadline?
Agree with Parsons.
And then if you think Parsons is going to be a part of that as well, that's a whole lot of moving to do between now and the trade.
I don't see a
scenario. 3 guys who make $25 million and up.
Yeah, I don't see a scenario where you're going to move all 3.
Yeah.
No, it seems unlikely. That would be the dream now.
That'd be the executive of the year.
Yes. All right, much more to get to on the way. We'll revisit the night Klay Thompson got hot, even by Klay Thompson standards, and that's saying something. Shaquille O'Neal was an unstoppable force in the NBA the moment he stepped onto the court. Not only was he named an All-Star as a rookie, but selected as a starter as well. Ro Parrish revisits Shaq's first All-Star appearance back in 1993 in this episode of Storytime with Shaq.
At center is the first rookie to start in an All-Star game since 1985. Standing over 7 feet tall and weighing 300 pounds, he plays well beyond his 20 years. You know him simply as the Shaq. From the Orlando Magic, Shaquille O'Neal.
1993, Utah. Your first All-Star game, making it as a rookie. Number one, what were your first impressions when you get there? Did you expect to make the All-Star game as a rookie?
Well, I expected to make the All-Star game, but I wasn't expecting to be starting. First of all, before I got there, terrified.com.
Why?
Because, I mean, all the guys that I dreamed of being, guys that I looked up to, I'm finally there with them. There was one moment at the All-Star game that kind of made me relax a little bit. We were doing the team picture, and the guy puts his hand on my shoulder, and I looked down, some big hands. I'm like, who is this? And I looked up, and it was the great Michael Jordan. And he said, I'm proud of you, big fella. You're going to be a great player. So once he said that, the steam just like, but after that, I kind of learned how to be an all-star performer because it's different. And, it's kind of similar to my thought process of putting on the show for the fans. But at an all-star game, you got to do extra. Come down, cross people up, dribble between the legs, better slam dunks, maybe shoot a 3. So After that, I became sort of an all-star expert.
So looking back at all those players that you spoke about that you were in awe of, you had that Michael Jordan moment, but talk about Pippen, Isaiah, Malone, Stockton, Barkley, Robinson. Are you able to take all that in at that moment? Do you realize how much greatness you're around when you see all those players out there with you?
It was just solidifying the beginning of my greatness. Because when you come in as a rookie and everybody says you're great, and then I made the top 50 team, a lot of people was upset about that. So in my mind, I had to back it up. So by me getting selected to the All-Star game, that was sort of backing it up. I had to put up big numbers, sort of backing it up. But, I was just saying to myself when I was sitting in the locker room, damn, I made it. Medium-level juvenile delinquent who didn't start his freshman or sophomore year, 35-1, San Antonio Cole High School, lose the state championship on free throw line, redeemed myself senior year, 36-0, 3 years at LSU, #1 pick. Everyone says you're the next greatest thing. Maybe this is the start of me being what everybody says I can be. When you're just sitting there watching, you just automatically put yourself in those scenarios, and I used to do it all the time. And then finally, look up, and I see the real Charles Barkley walk by. I see the real John Stockton, the real Karl Malone, the guy who I grew up watching, the Admiral, David Robinson, Pat Riley with his $6,000 suit and his silky tie and the beautiful hair. Like, I'm sitting next to all these people, so maybe what everybody is saying that this young kid will be a great player, maybe it's true.
The 2019 All-Star starters will be revealed tomorrow night on TNT at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. You both were part of the esteemed media panel.
I don't know about esteemed. Yeah.
Calling it esteemed. Media panel that represents 25% of the total ballot when it comes to the starters. So you both had to submit Eastern Conference starting five and a Western Conference starting five. Your Eastern Conference starters are pretty similar. Both include Kyrie Irving, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, and Joel Embiid. They are identical except for what I'm going to call the second guard spot. Kemba Walker for Greg. Seika, you've got Bradley Beal. This being a TV segment, you're now obliged to argue about it.
I mean, listen, I think both those guys are worthy. I just looked at and weighed heavier the work Bradley Beal has done since John Wall went down. A Wizards team, GA, that was out of it, out of people's consciousness. We had kind of written them off. John Wall goes down, Bradley Beal is playing fantastic. I think he should be an all-star either way.
Yeah.
He could be a starter. You could have him be one of the reserves. It doesn't matter. As long as he's on that team, I think you're doing right by him.
Yeah, and I agree. I think both are going to make the team. I went with Kemba. One, he's been great from the start of the season, and two, as of today, they're a playoff team.
Right.
And so to me, I do think, because their stats are actually very similar, but I just think, ultimately you want to reward success too in winning. So that's why for me, I ended up going with Kemba. But I'm like you, Sekou. I think both guys are all-stars with how well they performed this season under adverse conditions for both teams.
I actually put Ben Simmons on my ballot, and I think you could make an argument for three of those guys.
I think he'll be there too.
If you're rewarding winning, Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
So the winning argument, that's kind of where I fell.
No question.
In the Western Conference, again, you agree on four of them. Steph Curry, James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Paul George. Greg has the Kings. Sekou went with the Brown.
Yeah, I just looked at the fact, again, it goes back to before LeBron went down, they were a 4 seed. With that same team, in essence, that we saw from a season ago, and his numbers had been off the charts again. And in Anthony Davis, as much as I love him, again, he's going to be an all-star. I just thought overall, the fact that the team success just hasn't been there. That was the one area where I had an issue. And the interesting thing for me, the guy that probably is more deserving based on team success is Jokic.
Yeah.
Because Jokic has been incredible this year. So, again, he's definitely going to be on the team.
For sure.
But I think, again, part of this is who do you want to see as well when you talk about the starters. And so I ultimately went with LeBron.
Yeah, and if Anthony Davis was any less of an unbelievable, freak of nature in this league, it would be easier to leave him off something like this. I just figured when you look at his body of work, independent of the context of the Pelicans' struggles this season, he's always up here on that next level of the handful of guys in the league who can do what he does on a regular basis. Hard to leave him off, but of course, people will say, well, why are you penalizing LeBron for missing games when you didn't penalize Steph Curry for the same thing.
Yeah, why are you doing that?
So there is a part of me that kind of scratches my head and says, do you knock LeBron for being out? Is it a recency bias because he's been out lately? You know, because nobody's going to have a Western Conference All-Star starting five without LeBron James. It wouldn't make sense. But, of course, I went there.
Except for you.
Except you did. And yet you did it anyway. I know. Didn't you?
I figured somebody had to shake it.
There you go.
I'm with you on AD, though. I mean, some guys, the numbers, the talent is just so overwhelming, you almost overlook.
Shout out to Paul George, though, for playing his way onto that list.
Man,
he's been awfully good this year for the Thunder. I vote on @NBA TV until noon on Friday. No, not yet. Give me a chance. I'm here doing the segment now. When do you want me to vote?
My bad.
I don't have a device on me. Give me a chance.
You don't have your phone. I'm sorry.
No. After the segment, I'll go and vote. Who you got?
This is difficult because I think you run into the argument of what defines athleticism. Is it explosive, get off the floor, ability?
We're here to overthink this.
Exactly. So we're going to take this to the deep end of the pool here. Right. But I got to be honest with you. As explosive as Russ is and as marvelous as LeBron's athleticism has been for so long, Giannis is the largest guy in this category in terms of a graceful athlete.
Freakish, you might say.
To me, well, he's been called something like that. But to me, a lot of it is about how efficient are you with the ball underneath you and with the game underneath you in terms of can you get up and down the floor at your size and dominate in all the different ways that he has shown us he can this year. When you're that height, when you're 7 feet tall basically, and 14 feet long from fingertip to fingertip or whatever, that to me connotates a certain type of athleticism that the average man can't muster.
Sure.
Russ, to me, is the most explosive by position in the entire league. You talk about a guy, a furious athleticism that can overwhelm people. LeBron is probably the most well-rounded, but the best and the one with the highest ceiling in this category to me is Giannis.
I'm going to go with the old head in LeBron. And part of it is most athletic. I've never seen a guy in the 16th season this athletic that can still do the things that he does. And part of being a great athlete is your ability to utilize that athletic ability with your mind. And I don't know that we've ever seen as good a combination of athletic prowess and intellectual understanding and capacity of how to play the game as LeBron. So I would go with him in that category for that. Now, Giannis is freakish, as is Westbrook. But I just think, too, being a great athlete, we're in the business of winning. He's won the most.
That's absolutely true.
I think that does, because you can have all that ability in the world, but if you're not getting to a level where that athletic ability says you should get to, then that, to me, gets discounted a little bit.
Well, to me, that gets into a different category of just overall players, not just athlete, which is the question.
Well, these are three athletes.
They are three great athletes. To me, of the three at this moment in time, I'm going with Russell Westbrook, who is as freakish as anybody in the league.
Yes,
and when you think of explosion, and that's often what people kind of default to when they think of athleticism, there's just nobody as explosive. That dunk last night at the end of the game against Portland, that was absurd, and you saw people getting out of the way. This guy could have been an NFL safety. He could have been who knows what else.
Maybe a defensive end.
Pro sports, I mean, strong safety.
But to me, that's always been the dilemma about athleticism. Is it,
right, what is that?
Yeah, what does it entail? Like, is the guy who would be the most versatile of these guys? Because I think LeBron clearly could have been a professional in several different
disciplines. Oh, sure, lots of things, yeah.
So you think about that, but man, could you imagine Giannis or Russell Westbrook playing volleyball? Or playing another sport where they could use.
I can't go volleyball. There ain't that much money in it. I don't think they would have went.
But they could have dominated.
I don't mean just how much money you get.
I'm just teasing.
But I mean, you think about that, the versatility of your athleticism, and then instinctual athleticism. Like LeBron, to me, is off the charts when it comes to athletic instincts. I don't remember a guy, maybe since Michael Jordan, being that instinctual with his athleticism in terms of timing and knowing how to, make plays on both ends of the floor all over the court the way LeBron does.
And if you want to include longevity, reliability, he goes into that. I know he's hurt right now, but he goes into that category as well. That's always been one of my arguments for Kareem as the greatest of all time.
Yep.
Guy played into his 40s. He was unbelievable all that time.
There's no question.
And started.
Right, vote on NBA TV. Yeah, Isaiah and the old school guys will tell you they had him at the top of the scouting report deep into his 30s.
Yeah.
Crunch time coming up at 9 Eastern time. All the big finishes from a big Wednesday night.